almost live on YouTube. Woo. Record button. All right, everyone, we are live on YouTube. Hello, everyone. Good evening, beautiful ones, and welcome to another raw and real episode of Rise and Shine with Morning Moon. My name is Coach Lacey, and today I have a very special guest, and we are going to go somewhere that most people don't want to go in honor of shining a light in dark places and to kick off some controversial conversations that will be happening on my new show, Down the Rabbit Hole with Sapphire Soul and Morning Moon. This show debuts this Thursday, July 24th at 2:30 Pacific Standard Time. We'll be on Spotify, we'll be on YouTube, we'll be on Facebook, TikTok, all the places. We are going to be having some real raw conversations on super taboo topics and teaching one another to listen, be present, and have debates in a kind and loving way, and still remain friends afterwards. How about that, huh? So that being said, today on Rise and Shine, as not only a debut to my new show, but a celebration for my own walk in sobriety. I'm celebrating 32 days sober from weed and alcohol, and my 12th year together with my honey, and our 7th wedding anniversary was Friday. We are going to be pulling back the curtain on pornography addiction. Woo! Oh, and what that really does to your brain, what it does to your spirit, your relationships, and your life in general. So this is not about shame. This is not about judgment. This is about truth, raw and real truth. Porn is one of the most insidious strongholds in today's world. It is just rampant, and it's marketed as completely harmless, and that it's normal, and that it's even empowering. But the reality is it is spiritual warfare dressed up as a guilty pleasure. So I have the honor of bringing on someone who's not only trained in this field as a licensed mental health and substance abuse professional, but has walked her own road of healing and bold faith. This is my cousin. She's a powerhouse. She's someone who sees behind the mask and speaks truth with love. Please help me welcome Britannia. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me, and congratulations on your sobriety.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long, hard road, but now I'm finally through that difficult portion of it, and I'm still having some crazy dreams, but they are no longer nightmares. So that is
That's
very good.
progress. That's
Yes.
progress.
Yes. It's been quite the battle, really. So, can you share with us a little bit of your personal testimony about how God moved in your life and has opened your eyes to the battle of addiction, and then specifically pornography addiction?
Yeah, so I was active duty Air Force for a great number of years, and um, on my second deployment, had some things significant happen, which put me down a path of PTSD. Struggled really hard with that, and it took me a while to get to the point where I was ready to seek out help. Throughout that process, I developed some pretty unhealthy coping mechanisms. So it wasn't until I got to the point where I truly hated myself and I did not want to live anymore that it was like, okay, something needed to change. And through that process is where I met Jesus personally for the first time. And from there on out, everything has just fallen into place. I completely surrendered to God, and every part of my life from that point on has changed for the better. Of course, I guess when we're walking in His will for our life, it's very, very obvious. So that's what led me to what I do now, and that's working as a licensed therapist. I work with all kinds of cases. I really like to work with substance abuse, addiction of all kinds. So I work with substance, I work with behaviors, I work a lot with porn addiction. And it just kind of happened that way. I guess when you tell God, hey, send them to me, He does. And so I'd say about 70% of my addiction cases are working with pornography.
Wow. How did you go from substance abuse to okay, let me ask you how you went into substance abuse. What made you choose specifically substance abuse? I know that our family has a history of substance abuse. Was it because of that? Was it because of your own walk with that? Or what was it that made you choose substance abuse?
Yeah, so I had some pretty unhealthy coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
right? So,
Right.
um, and that's very common with PTSD.
Hmm.
And that's really why I have a heart for it, is because I see how going down a path that really you have no control over, but you see, like, you feel like you have control.
Yeah.
And it brings you to a point in your life where you don't have a choice anymore. So that is why I chose to work primarily with addiction. I've worked inpatient, I've worked with outpatient people. I support a lot of nonprofits that help with finding people treatment, paying for their treatment, and I find a lot of fulfillment in that part.
I love that. I love that. I had that moment where I just couldn't walk down that road anymore and I had to put it down. I've had a lot of people that have been like, "What's wrong with you? I don't even know you anymore. Here you are converting to Christianity and quitting smoking weed and all of these things." And it's been difficult to keep some friends around when you start to change your life. Did you find that true to be true as well?
Yes, yes, definitely. And
Yeah.
you when they talk in early recovery stuff, it's about the people, place, and things, and it's way more complex than just who you socialize with. It's more about the triggers in the brain. But you do have to make a lot of lifestyle choices. And when people start to see you heal and grow, you're not the person that you were anymore. So it does, a lot of people will shut away for that
Yeah.
very specific reason.
Yeah. So talking about porn is like the hidden addiction, right?
Mm.
And first of all, how did you start? What was it that made you start talking to people about porn? And is it just males? Was it just boys, guys that are into porn, or there were females into porn too? Or tell me a little bit about that.
There are females, but the predominantly males who are struggling with the addiction element. I'd say if we look at a broad perspective, sex in general,
Mm-hmm.
that's where you really bring your females in. So
Mm-hmm.
different dynamics and different motivations for it. So the way I got to porn was I really just say a God thing, right? So I like to work with addiction. Any addiction impacts the brain in a very similar way. Substance, shopping, porn, sex, gaming, all of it. It all hijacks the reward pathways of our brain. So, working with church because I am trained in Christian integration, so integrating the faith into sessions, it comes with the nature, right? There's a lot of struggle with porn addiction in the church.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And so I worked inpatient for an organization that is a faith-based residential treatment center with all men. And so I would see that there's so many connections with just you have one addiction, yes, to a substance, but it goes way beyond that.
Mm.
So I'd start to see a lot of porn addiction in there too.
So when do they just come out and say I'm addicted to porn? Do they even realize they're addicted to porn, or is it something that comes out in your conversations that they might be addicted to like alcohol and then they're like, "Well, I'm also watching porn." Are they usually interlinked? How does that come out for them? Isn't it like embarrassing for them to talk about it?
It is very embarrassing, and it's very embarrassing to talk about it with a female.
Oh yeah.
But so it usually doesn't come out right away. But when we
Yeah.
look at other areas of their life where they have maybe, some compulsion or other areas that they want to fix, that's when it comes out.
Okay. All
So,
right.
but
And
I do in my private practice have people, mostly men, who seek me out just because I work with porn addiction.
And is it possible to become free of porn addiction?
Yes.
Yeah. I
Yes.
mean, it feels like it's everywhere. It feels like it's everywhere. And it feels like it's just so normalized now. It's
It
worse
is.
than drinking. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, who cares if you're watching porn? So can you tell us why it's such a big deal to be addicted to porn? And what does being addicted to porn even like look like?
Well, first of all, so it looks like
Yeah.
maybe early introduction.
Mm,
So most men who are introduced to porn are introduced very early in their lives, between around 7 to 10 years old. And it just grows from there. You do have some men who are introduced later in life, and that's usually for a specific reason, right? They're looking at a boredom. They're looking for connection. They're looking for a stress relief, or they're
mhm,
looking for escape.
mm,
That's what porn becomes for them. And why is
mhm,
it the most challenging? Because, like you said, it's readily available, it's culturally acceptable. We'll just downplay the impact of it when it's free online. You can watch it on your phone. Nobody knows what you're looking at or what kind of porn you like. So there's that element of secrecy in there.
mm,
And then it becomes so tied to emotions
mm,
and lack of connection
mm.
that it becomes very hard to break free from.
So you said when they get bored, like what's that?
Boredom.
Yeah, why? Like what is that all about? Why not just go do something else? Why not, go tinker in their workshop or, go do something? Why porn?
Yeah, it's
What?
actually that when I talk with men about what the number one trigger is, it's always boredom.
Huh.
And that's related mostly to the reward pathways in the brain, right? It's a dopamine seeking behavior.
Okay.
It's also a connection seeking behavior. So in those moments where some of them, it increases, but they'll be bored or they're home alone, they don't have any friends to go out with, or they're just sitting in their car, they can easily pick that up. They have a dopamine hit, and
Mm,
in a way, their brain is tricked into thinking that it's connection because the brain doesn't know the difference between fantasy connection
mm.
and physical connection early on.
So what if they're married? Why not just go hang out with their wife?
So there's that element of secrecy in there too, right?
So
It's
is
a
it
dirty
cheating?
little secret.
Yeah.
Well, if we look at it from a biblical standpoint, it's very clearly stated that it's an act of adultery that's committed.
Wow.
So, and I deal a lot with the couples too. So the spouse, the
Yeah.
emotional damage that's done, the betrayal.
Yeah.
It's a very complex issue.
Yeah, so then how do you get over that? How do you get over the betrayal and how do you get over the shame and how do they connect again? Doesn't it affect their sex life? Like doesn't it end up affecting the way that they connect and what if they yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So it does impact physical intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
because the brain becomes desensitized, or it programs itself basically to seek out one form of intimacy, which is that fantasy intimacy. And then when they have physical intimacy, it feels it's like it's not enough. They still very much love their spouse, but it's all about that dopamine system in the brain.
So then how do you get back? So say they quit watching porn. Like how long would it take for them to get back to having regular relationships with their loved one, with their spouse?
Unfortunately, there's like no set time, right? I
Yeah.
wish so. I wish we could say it's like 90 days, 90
Yeah.
days, and you'll be back.
Yeah.
But it depends on each individual person, the complexity, the length of time that they have been using porn, just like any substance, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it takes time to reprogram those neural pathways. Because if you think about it, they've been creating a rut for
Mm-hmm.
years. It's
Mm-hmm.
very deep and they don't have much wiggle room to get out. And what
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to do is create new neural pathways, neural connections that will get them back to experiencing sex as a connection thing
Mm-hmm.
instead of a fantasy act.
And so then how do you create those new neural pathways? Like what suggestions would you have for a couple that came in and they've been free of porn for a while, what would you say to them to get back to being connected?
Yeah, it's all about the creating of intimacy. Sex isn't just about the act.
Mm-hmm.
Sex is about being like intimately connected.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens, we see with porn, right? That changes for the man.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes more of an escape, or it
Mm-hmm.
becomes more of a task. When you're looking, you need to truly seek connection. But it's hard, right? Because the female is so tied to her emotions, right? That betrayal that comes in.
Yeah.
So she starts to develop negative self-image. She starts to develop some of those, you know, this negative self-talk. And we have to be very physically and emotionally connected so
Hmm.
that we can experience sex in an intimate way with our partner. And if that man has betrayed us, it's really hard.
Yeah.
So a lot of the healing has to be done separately,
Okay.
and then they come back together to rebuild the intimacy. She's got to work on her, he's got to work on him.
Yeah. So then all of those things have to kind of fall away and you have almost a renewed relationship.
Hmm.
Wow. Have you seen successful renewals in relationships with people who've experienced this harmful addiction?
Yes, yep, I sure have. It takes time, just like with any addiction. If you think, here's the problem, right? You can't like porn and hair, so you can't just quit porn like you would heroin
Yeah.
because there's that biological drive that's connected to it. I mean, you could become a monk, but sex can also become a trigger, right? It can become a trigger because your mind has been programmed for so many years to go down this route in order to achieve sexual gratification.
So
And then self
what do
can
you
become
mean by that? Sorry. What do you mean by
so
sex can become a trigger?
so just the process of arousal, the process of, getting to the point where they can climax. Sex itself can be a trigger for them wanting to relapse because the brain
Oh.
wants more, right? The brain
Oh,
wants more dopamine.
okay. Okay. Wow. Oh, it's so loaded. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you said that um it's pretty prevalent in like churches, right? Like a lot of people who are seeking Christ and are seeking a holier life are struggling with this. Like what would you what how do you what do you do to get them set back? Like if you were to give them an exercise or something to do, what would you tell your client that they needed to do to help them through this? Besides just quitting porn, like just quit it, you know?
Yeah, right. And wouldn't that work? Like, hey, just
Just
put that
quit.
pipe down, right?
Yeah,
So
just put the pipe down.
it's not. It's so so my number one approach with any addiction is number one, I always ask, what does it do for you?
Right,
Right? What it's doing something.
right.
It's never about the porn, it's about what the porn is doing for you. It's never about the substance, it's about what you're getting out of it. Because
Mm-hmm.
as we know, you don't the pleasure piece doesn't last forever. The
Right.
brain actually changes in order to basically reprioritize that substance or that activity as more necessary than basic survival. So we've got normal brain, we'll say normies, the normies would have, survival. They know they need food, water, shelter. They know they need, you know, to have connection. All that. The addicted brain doesn't look at it that way. The addicted brain is set up so that that activity or that substance has to be achieved in order for the rest to fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to look at it. I try to break down the science of it all, right? This is not a moral failure. You're not a bad person. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're not any of those things. There is much more at stake than just stopping, because the brain is very powerful and it can compel you to do things, right? Because
Right.
it's wired to think it needs to, or you will die,
Right. Right.
right?
So that's like your old brain, right? That's like the old brain that's
Mhm.
stuck in that pattern.
Yes.
Okay. So then how do you rewire that brain? Do you use EMDR? Do you use, what do you use to help rewire those pathways?
So it's all about time,
Mm,
right? It's
mm-hmm.
more about the time than it is about the effort. And the
Oh,
reason it's more about the time is because it takes time for neuroplasticity to take place, right? For new neural pathways to be formed so that if you look at it from like the analogy of an old house,
mm-hmm.
there's an old house and it's got bad wiring.
Yeah.
So we've got to go through and rewire that house.
Yeah.
But as a bad contractor, you went low, you wanted to, get it out of there for a cheap bill. I put the new wiring in on top of the old. So there will be times that the electricity wants to go down the bad pathway.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's how it happens. But eventually, we're going to train your brain enough to switch over to where it's now choosing the new pathway, which is abstinence or whatever the goal is for, you know, reversing the addiction.
So is there anything that like people can do to, or they've stopped doing the action? Is what would you say they would fill that void with? Like how do they fill that void of boredom or whatever, of not feeling like they're, being satisfied or they're the dopamine hit? How do you get a dopamine hit if there's nothing to give you dopamine?
Yeah. Well, I always say to my patient clients that it's all this is their grand therapist talking. So my therapist, who but he'll say that it's not about giving what you're giving up; it's about what you're replacing it with.
Hmm.
So we really look at all of, any kind of activity, things that they used to enjoy, but they lost throughout the course of the addiction or even just life. So we
Right.
try to revisit some of those things. We make lists. Lists of things that they can do if a craving is coming up. We come
Mhm.
in with some concrete skills that they can use to confront the cravings. But I always try to take the shame element out of it, right? Because the shame element will keep you trapped.
Mm. So what do you mean by the shame element? Just like feeling bad about it, and how do you get rid of that shame element? Like what if you're just caught up in this cycle of guilt and shame of all these past things that you've done? Like what do you do?
Yeah, so when we confront the shame part about it, it's really moving towards acceptance. It's all about
Mm,
acceptance, right?
mm,
We can't change the past. We
right,
can't change what we did. We can't change what happened inside of us because of what happened to us. That's with trauma.
right.
But what we can change is how we use it to move forward.
Hmm.
So part of reducing shame is saying, you know what? I am going to make mistakes. This is not a perfect cycle. If we set abstinence as the goal
Hmm.
initially, then we're setting the person up for failure. Through the process of becoming abstinent and starting that true recovery, I'm looking at the whole person, the triggers, the emotions, the trauma, everything that fed that addiction. And when we're not looking at that number count, right? That, oh, if I slip up, I'm going to fail. If we take that away and we say every point of this process is a data point, a learning point for you. So if you do slip and you're having a bunch of cravings, which is normal, right? I want to know because we want to look at why. So we
Mm,
make it like a very scientific process of exploration. And throughout that process, the person really learns themselves
mm,
and
hmm.
the whys behind the addiction, the triggers, all of it.
So if they were to have like a trigger come up and they were to fight through that trigger, every time they do not self-satisfy, is that creating a whole new neural pathway so for them to kind of put that rewiring down into something more fruitful?
Yes. Yep,
Okay.
that's 100% what's happening. So each time they can overcome the craving, understand what's happening
Mm.
and why it happened, because
Mm.
most of the things that trigger us to want to use
Mm.
are completely outside of like what's going on in our front brain, right? So
Mm.
it's all subconscious. It could be something someone says, a sound that came on the radio. It could be driving by and seeing a sign that you used to frequent,
It's
or
like
a sound, like the sound bit from one of those popular
yeah, the popular.
websites, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like grief, kind of. It's kind of like when grief gets triggered, you
Mhm.
just like, when I hear certain songs, I'll just start crying out of nowhere. And, that sounds a lot like a trigger.
Mhm.
So, man, so it's such like a hidden issue, and it's really hard to talk about. And how do you get people to like really start to talk about it and realize what they're doing and then make a change? Like, do they just have to come to this conclusion to themselves? Like, and they're
100%.
ready? What if they
100%. It has to come from them
yeah.
because it's, I always use the analogy of the egg, right?
Hmm.
So if an egg is broken from the outside, life
Hmm.
ends.
Hmm.
But if it's broken from the inside, life begins. So that's where they really have to find it within themselves to be like, okay, I'm sick of this. I don't want this anymore. I've had enough suffering. I'm ready to
Mhm.
change.
Mhm.
So that's where that element of surrender comes in.
Man, and then once they've made those changes, um, and they've started doing the work and they've gotten rid of this and they've made these neural pathways, what would you like have them do to kind of get back to a healthy sexual relationship with their wife or their husband or whatever, like if it's a woman that's dealing with that too, like what would you do? Like what would you have them do? Just you said intimacy, right? Like what does that look like? What does healthy intimacy look like?
Yeah, so first is outlining the emotional needs, right? The emotional wants and needs and the communication needs, really truly reconnecting with that person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Seeing both of them as imperfect, right? You can't, they have to choose. They have to choose that they want to fix this. And it can't just be the one who is struggling with addiction, it has to be the one who is suffering because of addiction.
Right.
So
Right.
both have to make that conscious and intentional choice
Mm.
that we're going to fix this and we're going to get through it.
So the jealousy that comes up from the women and the you did this, that, and the other thing. And I have a really close friend who has just been scorned by this issue in her marriage. And every chance she gets, she just nit at her husband. And they've actually been separated. And I keep praying for them, but it's like, how on earth can you drop that jealousy and that rage and that scornfulness, and forgive someone? Like, what is that even, what would you say to someone like her that can't get over the jealousy?
Hmm. Yeah, well, I always try to say to the spouse or the one who's suffering because of the addiction that they have to separate the person
Mm,
from the problem. She can
mm,
hate the problem. She
mhm.
can hate the fact that this has impacted her marriage. She can even hate the fact that that person did it,
Yeah.
but she has to still love him
Yeah.
because that's whoever loves the longest wins,
Oh, I love that. Whoever loved
right?
the longest wins. Oh, I love that. I love
So
that.
if that love and connection isn't coming from forgiveness, right? They're going to have to forgive each other
Yeah.
thousands of times over the
Yeah.
course of that recovery period. And but she also, or whoever the hurt one is, has to work through the trauma
Yeah.
it's caused.
Yeah.
I always tell him like, hey, she's not this way because of something, because of no reason. She's
Yeah.
this way for a reason. So the responsibility lies on him to show, if we're talking about him and her, because largely it's a male and female thing, but he's got to show and take accountability, right?
Mm,
He's got to show that he's making change. He's
mhm,
got to demonstrate to her that she can feel safe again.
mhm,
And if he's
mhm,
not taking accountability, if he's
mhm,
not, falling on the sword and recognizing, hey, yeah, she's checking on me right now because
mhm.
of, 1,000 times before she busted me doing the same thing.
And then, so shifting gears a little bit, how do we protect our teenagers um, from this and our young adults? Because this is, sure, it's prevalent for adults, but it's really rampant for young ones, for the teenagers, and it's completely normalized. So how do we protect our children from this, and how do we recognize this in our children and our teenagers?
Yeah, that's the hard part, right? Because there's so much technology
Yeah.
and you can't put them in a bubble and keep them there forever. I think the most important thing a parent can do is teach them about it
Mhm,
before the world does, right?
mhm,
Teach them
mhm,
about, if we're in from a Christian standpoint, teach them about how God designed sex, what he designed sex for, the birds and the
mhm.
bees from the God point of view, and not let the world teach them. Because if we don't, the world will. And
Yeah,
what is the world? It's accepting of this, it's
yeah,
supporting of this, it promotes this, and it's all about the sex
yeah,
which porn falls under. So that it has to be a choice in parenting also, which is hard. It's uncomfortable, but we have to make that effort, and we have to make effort to protect them, but not shelter. We have to teach them about what to look out for and what to stay away from.
yeah,
Why?
absolutely. So how would you know, like, if you were looking for signs in your home, like say you were just kind of naive and you were just looking for signs in your home of this happening with your teenage boys or your husband, what would you be looking for?
Oh. I don't know. That's a hard question.
Yeah.
I mean, well, if we look at it from the fact that it's something that someone wants to hide,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those typical
Distract.
behaviors
Yep.
of, hiding the phone, not wanting to be open about conversations, anything that
Mm-hmm.
would drive that shame instinct to cover it up. I would
Mm.
look for those types of signs, but those can be about anything related to technology, right? Anything that they don't want to be known. But if there's secrets, there's going to be shame behavior.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, but other than that, it's so hard. You don't really know an addiction is taking place until it becomes very obvious, unless
Right.
you're paying a specific attention for
Right.
that thing.
Do they have rehab for porn? Like, do they have rehab for this sort of thing? Is there like a place people can go to, lock themselves away from technology? Even video games. I mean, video games is a whole nother can of worms there, right? Is it very
Video
similar to porn?
games, it impacts the same neural pathways, right? The same things happen with the dopamine. And
Mm,
then also with the down regulation of dopamine, which is where you build tolerance.
mm,
So um, uh, I don't know specifically if there's any that just take porn other than
mm-hmm.
like a straight mental health facility, but there's lots of individual outpatient therapists, there's support groups at church, there's group processes that are peer led. So the same sort of recovery communities. There's also hundreds of websites, both secular and Christ focus for
Mm-hmm.
walking people through porn.
I know that Celebrate Recovery is um, a good collective that's similar to like AA and NA
Mhm.
for this sort of thing. And, I'm happy to report that our family is addiction free now in our home, for quite a while for that. But that that has had an impact, on pretty much every female that I am friends with.
Mhm.
And including myself, and luckily, we were conscious enough to be aware of our own addictions and take charge of that and replace them with Christ-led behaviors. But that's why this conversation is so important, because
Mhm.
there's so many people out there who aren't even willing to talk about it, and they just want to sweep it under the rug. There's been entire marriages of like 25 years or more that have been completely dissolved from this issue. And from what I understand, it leads to even darker issue. I think this is how people get like it starts out as simple porn watching, and then it ends up you read on, I know from my own work in the dark net and the underground is I used to, for anybody who's new watching, I used to hunt pedophiles on the dark net.
Mhm.
And I always wondered how on earth they got to that point. It's just absolutely monstrous. So do you have any insight on how someone would get from, just simple porn watching to becoming a complete monster?
Yeah, so it's all about that down regulation of the dopamine system, right? That increases the reward seeking behavior. So it's not doing the same thing. So you have to
Oh.
keep finding and looking for new ways to get the same effect.
Mm,
And that becomes more and more extreme in some cases.
mm,
So that's where you see that big shift towards what you were searching for
mm-hmm,
online, where you're hunting online, right?
mm-hmm,
And you
mm-hmm,
see it with substance addiction also. So
mm-hmm.
you have to use more and more and more over time to get the desired effect. And then pretty much in a, you're trapped.
You're
And
trapped.
it becomes true.
So then how do people have like how who people who have been addicted to this thing, essentially they're almost, it's like they're addicted to sex. So how do they ever have sex again in a healthy way? Like is that even possible? It's
Yeah,
crazy. It
so
just it
yeah, it's
feels like
challenging. It's so challenging for
yeah,
porn and sex because
yeah.
it's tied to that biological urge, right?
Yeah.
And unless you're going to become a nun or a monk or
Yeah.
fully abstinent, you can't protect yourself from sex, maybe the physical act, but everything else that's out there, the movies, the TV shows, all the media, and
Yeah.
even conversations with people. So it's all about relearning intimacy and relearning what that, like basically reprogramming what the act of sex means. So
Mm,
taking away from the lust element of the porn addiction
mm,
and building more, physical presence, intimacy,
mm,
redefining what it means in their mind and taking away from performance,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
some men have the performance anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So they are so focused on performance that they're missing connection. And so they'll find that gratification in porn. Easier
Mm.
and it's safe, right? There's a safety in it. I don't
What's
have
the
to carry
difference
that.
between what is the difference between lust and intimacy? Like,
So
can you break that down? Yeah.
more of like a I would explain it as like a short term versus a long term thing, right? We
Mm-hmm.
can really have those high drive emotions that are related to just having the connection, the chase,
Mm.
the initial attraction or whatever it is. But the true intimacy that's built is a more emotional type connection.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, the difference in relationship, right? You have somebody you've met for a really short period of time, you really enjoy them, but then their true colors start to show
Yeah.
and you can see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Same thing would be true with the intimacy. This is a person that you know, love, and choose,
Yeah.
and you have to choose that positive part of the relationship.
Mm. What about people that have compounded, um, like people that are alcoholics that are using, like, how do you unravel that? Like, there's a lot of men out there that, like, like especially in like the construction world and whatever, there's a lot of men who drink every day, and then they now are smoking, the vape pen every day, and then they're smoking weed out here in the West Coast, and doing porn. That's a lot of compounded addictions.
Transfer addictions are very, very common, and it
Mm,
all boils down to the same thing. It's all a reward-seeking behavior. They're getting something
okay.
out of it. And so, in order to truly heal, you have to look at all of the reasons why. For
Mm,
some people, it's trauma.
mm.
Most people, it's trauma.
Yeah. So then you
Most
just have to do a
people.
lot of work then, and
Yes.
yeah, of trauma
Yeah.
healing. So, um, if you were to give a message to someone listening right now who's like caught in this shame cycle and wants to be free of it, what would you say to them?
I would say that you're not stuck and you're not broken,
Mm,
that you are capable of change and you can do it. God gave us this amazing brain, right? He designed it down to the very proteins that hold all of our cells together.
mm,
And He created the brain so that we can change.
mm,
And through the process of neuroplasticity, we can. And
mm.
through His grace and strength, we can. So I'd say no one is beyond redemption, including the people who are currently suffering.
Ugh, I love that. Oh my gosh. I so believe that because I know that I have suffered in different various and sundry addictions, and I have been delivered. I have been delivered from that. I used to, when I first quit smoking weed, I would drive in circles around the weed store and fight with myself. I would literally fight with myself about wanting to go in, and now I go past it and it's like like I don't even want. There's no desire at all. But then if I have a bad day, you know, if I'm like having a day where there's something emotional going on, my brain is like, oh, you can just it'll relieve that a bit, but I know that that's a rabbit
Yeah,
hole.
it's a trap. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's
It's
a
a
trap.
trap.
It's a
Yes.
trap. So
Yeah,
like,
and
yeah, go ahead.
That's like, okay, so with the development of how the brain develops, right? It develops from the bottom up. We have survival brain, the amygdala, right brain over here, emotional brain, heavily tied to the nervous system, memory, emotion, all of that takes place over in the right. And so it, of course, is built right on top of that survival brain. So when you have those intense emotions, the brain wants to go to its number one coping mechanism of choice, which is that substance,
Mm-hmm.
because it remembers how great it felt. But we
Mm-hmm.
know it's a trap.
It's a
Don't
trap.
do it.
It's a trap. It's a trap. I always tell my audience and my clients that we can only control our controllables, and the things that we can control are things like what are we eating? How are we showing up in the world? What are we consuming? How much water are we drinking? And we have to anchor into the things that we can control because we can only control what goes into our body and our mind. We can't really control the existential or the external, any of the things going on around us, but we can control how we show up and we can control how we um feed ourselves and how we nourish ourselves and how we take care of us and how movement and motion changes emotion and I'm a really big um advocate of exercise and moving your body. And like if you're like having a bad day, go move your body. Like change that state of being, you know? What
Mhm.
would you say about that? Do you think that that's a good way for when you have a craving to just shift into something more healthy?
Yes, so it's all the healing process is more about than is more about just abstinence, right?
Mhm.
Is it's about healing the social parts of your life,
Mm.
healing emotionally, healing all the whole thing.
Yeah.
Every part of your life has to be healed.
Yeah.
And um, so with cravings
Yeah.
specifically, there's so many things that you can do to capture that craving in the moment. A lot of it is mindfulness based.
Mm.
Mindfulness based. It is possible to experience a craving and not act on it.
Hmm. So like
It's
Wim Hof breathing or what? Like what do you mean by
so there's so many skills out there. The most basic that I give the people coming in right away, it's like, okay, we're gonna try this one out. And then we get more complex after that, is delay, distract, decide. Right? So
mm,
we're delaying our choice. So we have this craving. I want to act on it, but I'm going to wait
mm,
30 minutes.
mm,
In that 30 minutes, we've come up with several activities that they can do that
mhm.
will help with distracting their brain and basically getting it out of that obsessive thought cycle.
Yeah.
And it has to be something rewarding, or
Mhm.
else it's not like cleaning the toilet because that's going to make you want to go do it again, right?
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so it has to be something that is meaningful, something that will get their brain away from that cycle. And then once that 30 minutes has passed, or whatever the period of time is, they decide, do I want to do this or do I want to delay it again?
Mm,
So even just disrupting that small pattern
mm,
is
mm.
important. Shifting the brain to a tangible task will help with breaking down that craving.
What are a couple activities like in that moment that you would give to someone when you go play with your dog or what? Like what would you tell them to go do? What are a couple quick things that you could suggest today? If someone's watching this and they're like, I want to try that, what would you tell them to go do?
First, emphasize connection, right?
Okay.
Anytime you can reach out to somebody that you maybe a friend that you haven't talked to in a while,
Hmm.
somebody that your best friend or somebody that you are really close with,
Hmm.
get that connection piece. Then the other thing would be anything that like brings you joy, being with your dog, going out for a walk really quick, or some people it's art, something that you can reasonably do in a 30-minute time span that's not like, oh, wait, stop, I gotta park my car, go over here and do this. No, something like simple. Mostly connection is the important thing
Yeah.
because throughout that process, you're going to be distracted from what you wanted to do, and
Yeah.
now you're more focused on
Yeah.
something else.
I know that calling people for me when I was really struggling with the weed thing, it was like I would call my dad or I'd call my friend or I'd like get on a Zoom with someone. I was doing these virtual coffee chats and they were super helpful for me because it was like I would talk to somebody new and kind of connect in the community. And that has been
Mhm.
super helpful. So I love that. Man, this has been really eye-opening. Would you be willing to come on our other show and kind of go down a little deeper into this?
Mhm.
Okay, awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So for anybody who is listening, where can they find you? Like if are you going to be offering any sort of like can you do online counseling or are you going to be offering any sort of courses or anything like that?
So I am licensed only in the state of North Carolina right now,
Okay.
to provide clinical intervention.
Yep.
So I do provide one-on-one sessions, group therapy, and in the future I would like to put out something more that's more plug and play for people, and
Yeah.
even just like an online support community or
Yes.
group that people can access from all over.
Yep.
So to be continued on that.
Awesome. Awesome. Is there any good books that you'd recommend or podcasts or something that people could go to if they're wanting to learn more about this? Something that maybe changed.
Dopamine Nation is a really good book,
Okay.
and The Myth of Normal,
The
also a
myth.
really good book.
Okay.
Both of those talk about addiction. One of them is written by Anna Lemke. She is she works at Stanford University. She's like I don't know a specific title. Sorry, Dr. Lemke. If but so she has done a lot of great work on addiction. And then the other one is written by Gabor Mate.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. I know that I have a lot of people who love to read, and I will pick those books up as well. So I want to say this to every single person watching this today, if you're watching live or if you're watching a replay, if you have struggled with porn or if you've been battling addiction of any kind in silence, or you've been betrayed or wounded by someone else's secret use, you're not alone. You're not alone, and you're not beyond redemption. The enemy wants to keep you isolated, wants to keep you ashamed and keep you stuck. But Jesus can break those chains and not just put a band-aid over them. And if you're watching, you're like, Lacey, I'm tired of hearing you preach. Again, that's my walk. These are the tools that we're using. I'm trying to meet people where they're at in their journey. I wasn't always on the always on the Jesus train, but I did come full circle back here, and that is where I found my full redemption. And if you're not there yet, baby steps. Meet yourself where you're at. But maybe today is just your invitation to get honest with yourself and to show up in a more honest way and to reach out for real support, and to start pretending everything is fine when you're really just dying on the inside. Porn is a counterfeit connection. It is a fake fix for just a spiritual void. It's the hole in your soul, and that's with any substance. It's with any substance. Video games, television, food. It doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol or porn. It can be other things as well. Just any unhealthy thing that you are doing over and over again that is trying to fill this void. And it's time that we stop sugarcoating. And that's why we're having these conversations. It's why we're bringing darkness to light, because we need to be having these conversations out in the real world, making people uncomfortable so that we can come to a higher level of understanding. And we're here to reclaim our minds, reclaim our marriages and our bodies and our God-given ability to connect with each other on a soul level. So if you want to learn more about this powerful work that Britannia does, then please stay tuned. We're going to be chatting a little bit more about that on our next session together. And if you're in North Carolina, then she does have a website. I'll be sure to put that in the chat where she can connect with you there. And if this episode moved you, share it with someone else. Let's not keep this swept under the rug. Let's not keep it a whisper, and let's start bringing it out into the light where it actually helps us heal. And that's where we make a change in our world, because this is rampant. It is sad, and our young people are really suffering the most, I think. This next generation is really going to suffer from the porn use and from addictions in general. So I love you guys. Thank you for watching. Stay anchored in truth. Let's just rise and shine, fam, and I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day.